Hey, Texas Values friends, Jonathan Sines here, president of Texas Values. Great to be with you on a wonderful evening here in the state of Texas. We have a great opportunity to have a fantastic guest to talk about the issues that you care about here in Texas. If you've been watching some of our Facebook posts during the coronavirus issues, you've seen we've been running a series of videos talking about how the coronavirus is impacting your Texas values. And so we're going to continue that series tonight. We've got a great guest. And so I don't want to delay it anymore because we know that his time is precious. Tonight, we're going to have U.S. Senator Ted Cruz as our guest. And you know, there's been a lot going on up in Washington, D.C. as things relate to issues related to the coronavirus. And so we know he's been working very hard to represent our Texas values. He is our U.S. Senator from Texas. He was elected recently to his second term. He really has been practicing in state of Texas on issues of law and policy for many years. Many of you may remember he was the Solicitor General for the state of Texas, also worked in private practice, argued some of the most important cases, and was a part of some of the most important cases on the issues of faith, family, and freedom in the state of Texas, and our federal state courts, and at the U.S. Supreme Court. U.S. Senator Ted Cruz, welcome to our Facebook Live series and video update.
Jonathan, thank you. It's great to be with you, and thank you for the great work Texas Values does each and every day. I'm grateful for you. You represent our state. You fight for what we believe in, for our values. I'm sorry about that. The part of the joy of doing it from home is we've got our dog barking in the background, and we may have my girls run through the house. So sorry about the noise.
Oh, no, look, and that's what we're all about. We're all about family. I'm here in my bedroom at my home, and so, you know, you may hear some noise as well, but it's great that you're back at home in Texas. We know you were doing some important work up in DC, and we know you've been around the state. We know you've been communicating a lot of the issues, and so we're going to talk about those tonight. Just for our audience, there are three things mainly we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the CARES Act, the stimulus bill that was passed last week. We're going to talk about issues related to religious liberty and the impact of the coronavirus. We're also going to talk about what's happening in the discussion in our state, local, and federal government, and in the courts as it relates to how the abortion issue is connecting with the coronavirus. But let's talk about one thing that we know people are talking about all over the country is the bill that was passed, the CARES Act. Tell us a little bit about that bill and also some highlights that it's important for Texans to know about.
Well, last week, as you know, Congress passed a $2 trillion relief bill. And importantly, I don't refer to it as a stimulus bill. Instead, it's designed to provide much needed relief to all the millions of people who are hurting right now. We are facing two simultaneous crises. We've got a public health crisis of the coronavirus pandemic, and we have at the same time an economic crisis that is being caused by the government response trying to solve the public health crisis. On the economic side, we've seen over 10 million people lose their jobs in the last 2 weeks. It is devastating. And the emergency relief package has lots of different components in it. Two of the most important are the emergency relief for individuals. So every American in the country, if you make $100,000 a year or less, you're going to get a check from the government. You're going to get a check if you make $70,000 a year or less. You'll get a check for $1,200 per adult and $500 per child. That means a couple that has 3 kids that makes $150,000 a year or less, they will be getting a check for $3,900. That's real money. That's designed to provide real relief for people who may have lost their job in the last couple of weeks, may be wondering how are they going to pay their rent this month or next month. How are they going to put food on the table? How are they going to pay for their daughter's braces? And so that's designed to put cash in people's hands in this time of crisis to meet their needs. Another very, very important part of the bill is focused on small business. And there's $377 billion in emergency guaranteed loans that are going to small businesses. Now, these are small businesses that have 500 employees or fewer. But these are all of the restaurants and bars and beauty salons and hardware stores and movie theaters that have seen their customers disappear, and they're facing potentially going out of business, not through any fault of their own. And you know, it's important to distinguish this from, say, TARP back in a decade ago, because there you had financial firms whose own misconduct had helped cause the crisis. Here, the small business owner, the individual who just lost his job, this pandemic's not their fault. This was a crisis not of their own creation. And what the relief bill does is a small business owner can go, it's being administered through the Small Business Administration, which is in turn using community banks, local financial institutions to administer the loans. And so a small business owner can go and get an emergency guaranteed loan. And here's the critical piece. If that money is used for payroll or for rent or mortgage of their business or for utilities, then it's forgiven in its entirety. Everything that is used for payroll. And by the way, if the small business owner laid people off a week ago or 2 weeks ago, they can rehire those people and receive the loan that'll be forgiven. And the entire objective of this is to keep as many people in their jobs as possible, so they're getting a paycheck, so they're able to support their families, so they're able to maintain the relationship with their job for when we come out of this to keep going forward afterwards.
Yeah, look, those are great details. We're talking with U.S. Senator Ted Cruz, our senator from the state of Texas, talking about the recent relief bill, as you mentioned, the CARES Act, and a great way to state that, because this is a different setting than we've seen in other issues. You know, this is something that has affected all of us. This was not a mistake that someone made or how someone abused the system. This is something we're all dealing with. And you made a great point when it relates to some of these small business issues and some of the things that people are thinking about that's affecting everyone, because that's, you know, people that are losing jobs. We see the jobless rate, the claims for unemployment going up quite a bit. People that were not expecting this, they were not prepared for this, and people that are doing the best they can. I mean, restaurants in a lot of places, you know, trying to utilize a portion of their business, and maybe if for a month or two they can get through this, they're in a better position to rebound later.
Exactly.
Well, and it's great to have these details too, because a lot of times people are not aware how, you know, certain businesses run. Maybe you're an employee, or maybe you're a new employer. Maybe you haven't dealt with these type of issues before, so you didn't think these things would impact you. A lot of new businesses open up all the time in the state of Texas. So that's great detail. And I'm sure if they want to reach out to your office directly or check the website that your office has, I'm sure they could get more details on that. And if people have questions about that, send us an email, info@txvalues.org. We're happy to help answer some of those questions. And if you're on Facebook right now, share this, because we've got a few more minutes or so. We're going to get into some good areas that people are going to care about this. Comment, like it, get it out to more people. So one of the things we want to talk about as it relates to small business, we heard that you've done something as it relates to religious liberty on the small business issue.
So yes, that's right. So there is an interpretation of the small business loans that may end up discriminating against and restricting faith-based organizations being able to participate. That was not the intention of Congress. And so today I sent a letter to the Small Business Administration encouraging them to put out guidelines to make clear that a faith-based organization can maintain their faith, can maintain their values, and still be eligible for those loans. And so I hope the Small Business Administration makes that clarification. And, you know, in terms of resources, you mentioned our website. So my website, my official website is cruz.senate.gov. Let me say that again. It's cruz.senate.gov. If you go to that website, we've set up an entire page devoted to coronavirus crisis resources. And so it's all sorts of links for helpful information in terms of what is the individual payment, who qualifies, how does that work? What is the small business loan program? What are the different, how does that operate? Where do I go to apply? What do I do? And so we've tried to collect all those resources on one web page that you can get to from our official page, cruz.senate.gov.
Those are great resources too. Great information to keep people up to date, because things seem to be changing, you know, daily, sometimes by the hour. And as you know, religious based entities might be facing these issues too. Nonprofits are going to get hard. Texas Values is a nonprofit organization. And so we're going to make that letter available from Senator Cruz on our Facebook page and on our website as soon as we wrap up this video, or we're going to try to get it linked there in the comment section. A couple of other things that have come up, Senator Cruz, that I know you care about. Here in the state of Texas, we've seen the state government, local governments try to respond to some of these issues related to coronavirus. So one of the things that Governor Abbott did was make it clear that if it was a procedure that was not medically necessary, really to preserve someone's life, that all those other medical procedures should be halted for now. So resources can be used and utilized and prioritized to reacting and responding to things like the coronavirus and things related to that are so pressing. And that included your friend Ken Paxton put out a letter saying that means abortion clinics have to close. They're not essential during this time, and those procedures are not medically necessary at this time. And so that came out just a few days ago. And then, of course, the abortion entities filed a lawsuit. They won in the trial district court, but at the federal court, names I know you know, Jennifer Elrod, Kyle Duncan, those federal judges on the appeals court ruled no, that ruling stays in place and abortions have to stop for now while we're dealing with this, at least for another week or so.
Well, listen, you and I both, we celebrate any ruling that preserves life, that protects innocent life. And so I'm grateful for every life that is saved. In a time of crisis, we're seeing states across the country implement policies for halting all discretionary surgeries, all surgeries that are not immediately medically necessary. And the reason is that our healthcare system has the potential of being overwhelmed by this crisis. And there's also a heightened risk of transmission, that our healthcare workers are at particular risk. And we've seen what can happen if a healthcare system gets overwhelmed. You can look at a country like Italy, where what has happened in Italy with the crisis there, their socialized medicine system, their resources got overwhelmed. And the number of people that were sick with COVID-19, that had serious respiratory illness and that were dying, it began skyrocketing. And we saw Italy also started running out of essential medical equipment, things like ventilators. And they were making horrible triage decisions of having not enough ventilators to keep people alive. And so having to decide which patients get life-saving care and which don't. That is a decision I don't ever want to see medical professionals in Texas or in America having to make. And so stepping in proactively to halt these discretionary medical decisions to develop more ventilators. I've been very active and been on the phone helping ensure that we get more ventilators, more protective equipment for the state of Texas. But all of these are integrated together. And, I got to say, the reaction of Planned Parenthood to this really illustrates that the business of Planned Parenthood, they're in the business of abortion. It is a money-making industry, and they are going to fight to defend that continued profit stream. Sadly, it seems at all cost.
Yeah, it does seem that way. And we're not done with this issue yet. At least we're in a good position now with the appeals court decision. Texas Values is actually filing an amicus brief today, along with several other states, because this issue has touched other states. There's been other states' attorneys generals and others that have come out and also said that abortions need to be halted for now. These abortion procedures need to be halted for now so we can preserve resources related to the coronavirus as it relates to medical issues. And so we did file an amicus brief. We'll see where that issue goes. There's going to be a hearing on April 13th for the Fifth Circuit, but other issues are going to come up. And so we'll be defending that. And we're glad to have your support on that as well. Another issues that come up too, I know you care about religious liberty. And, it's been really encouraging to see how churches have been trying to balance this, trying to be good community supporters and be involved and be, careful and also care for their fellow man by pulling back on some of their services, even before they were ordered to. But some of these local government restrictions went a little bit too far and felt like they were restricting things. So Governor Abbott came out with an executive order this week, making it clear church services are essential. Doesn't mean you're going to have these big meetings of them, still relating to what the CDC has said about distance and about the numbers, but making it clear that these services are essential. So governments need to balance that and not just restrict them without a good reason. And we know that that's what the Supreme Court has said about these issues. Yeah,
no, look, I think that's exactly right, that we're seeing public officials who are concerned about protecting people's health and have given guidelines to avoid large gatherings because there's a potential risk of transmission of coronavirus. And one of the things as believers to remember is that the church is not bricks and mortar. It's not the building that we happen to go to on Sunday morning. The church is the body of Christ. The church are believers, and you know, the Bible tells us wherever two or more are gathered in one place in His name, He will be there. And so, you know, Heidi and I were members of First Baptist Church in Houston. Our church has suspended in-person services and during this crisis, but they're doing services online. And so what Heidi and I and the girls have done every Sunday morning is we go to our living room and we log on online and watch the service on TV and participate sitting together as a family in our couch. And it's interesting, you know, our pastor has said the number of people logging on just to our church service, I think it's exceeded 40,000 each week, which is more than have typically showed up in person to the services. And so in some ways, look, not being there in person, it is a hardship, but it's also God is sovereign and the will of God will prevail, and God can speak in times of crisis. In times of crisis, people need faith. People need to hear the gospel. And when they're scared, when they're contemplating mortality, that really underscores what matters. And so now we've also seen, sadly, some politicians who have a real hostility to religious liberty, who have a real hostility to people of faith and to Christians in particular, using this as a tool to persecute the church. And I think that's wrong. I don't think you should see government going after pastors and putting them in handcuffs. That's the wrong path to take. But I do think we're seeing a lot of faith leaders who are trying to use technology, trying to be creative to worship together, but not endanger health. I've also read about churches that are, I was talking to a pastor who out in West Texas, who they're going to do church at the drive-in theater, which is, I think, a great idea, where you can drive in and be in your car, but all be there together. You know, I think people can be creative and we can continue to minister to each other using all the tools we have.
Well, you know, it's great you mentioned that too, because our friends at First Liberty Institute have put out some guidelines on this issue. We've posted the one from General Paxton on this issue as well. And some of those examples come up, and those could be great ways to handle it. And, you know, it does add something too, to be at home and having those experiences together as a family. It's something to be encouraged by too. As you mentioned, some of those interactions, maybe some of people are being connected more, or they're hearing more about issues related to being a Christian, celebrating their faith, and as well realizing that, you know, there is no limitation. There are no four walls that are going to box in the word of God and our Savior Jesus Christ. So it's great to hear you. And you mentioned a little bit before we conclude, you're talking about your wife and children. And so, you know, I know you're back at home and all of us are making adjustments. And tell us how things have been going and how your family's adjusting, how Heidi and Catherine and Caroline, how your girls are doing. I think we might have had an audio issue there. I'm going to lose my
Jonathan, I'm not sure you can hear me. I think
Go ahead, Senator Cruz.
All right. Can you hear me? I didn't hear all of what you said. I think we had the internet glitch out on us.
Is he good?
Can you hear me? Can you hear me? All right, you can hear me. I was going to say, sorry about that. I think internet everywhere is being stretched by being mobile and connecting through online. But, you know, let me say this in closing, which is, this is a time of enormous stress. It's a challenging time for everyone, but there are also blessings to be found. You know, this past week, working at home, Heidi's working at home. Girls are going to school at home with distance learning. And you know, it is the time together as a family. I have literally every day thanked God for the blessing of our spending so much time together. We've set aside time every day to have lunch together and dinner together as a family. You know, I got to say, my girls' whole lives, we've never had a time where every day for an extended period of time we could have lunch together and dinner together. and it has been wonderful. In the evenings, we're going for a walk together as a family. It's amazing seeing the whole neighborhood come out. Everyone's walking 6 feet away, but they're out walking. You can't do anything else. You can't go to a restaurant. You can't go to a movie. So everyone else is walking, and suddenly I live in central Houston. It's been
I'm going to jump in. I think we might have lost Senator Cruz there, at least for a minute. Here he is.
okay.
We got you.
Guys, are you there?
Yeah, we're with you. We can hear you. Keep going. We lost you for just a second.
Okay,
Well,
I was just saying, we go for a walk every evening, and everyone in the neighborhood, can you hear me?
Yes.
Everyone in the neighborhood is out walking. They're walking their dogs. They stay 6 feet apart. And even though we live in central Houston, it's been transformed into Mayberry. It's like a small town where people are rediscovering time with family. And that's a blessing. That really is an incredible gift we've all been given. And I hope our families are growing stronger as a result of it.
No, I think those are great points. Can you hear me, Senator Cruz? Can you hear me on your end, Senator Cruz?
I'm hearing probably every other word.
All right. Well, at least maybe you got part of me. We appreciate you. And you're absolutely right about the return kind of to neighborhood, to family, to community, and how important that is, and how important it is for people to be reminded of that. And a lot of that speaks to our optimism as a state, as a country, in times of struggle and in times of, these challenges coming up, that we look for new and different ways or go back to what used to work, right? And being able to fall back on that is great. And I know a lot of that has to do with your representation for our state. Our Texas continues to be very important in this ongoing battle. Your representation, as well as your family, for our great state and all Texans, and serving us well as our U.S. Senator. Thank you very much, Senator Cruz. God bless you, Senator Cruz, and God bless your family.
God bless you as well. Talk soon.
Appreciate you. Well, we're going to let Senator Cruz go. I know it's almost dinner time. I'm going to have a couple of wrap-up comments, though, if you're still hanging on, just for some things for people to know about some of our work. There is a great post that we put up, a great blog post and piece about pregnancy resource centers. So if you're wondering about the rights of pregnancy resource centers, providing diapers, milk, essential services, and essential goods to women that need them, to babies that need them, we put up resources making it clear, at least from some of the ones we're seeing, that the ability and the freedom to do that continues. But email us, info@txvalues.org, if you want some information about that. I mentioned we filed an amicus brief at the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals earlier. That's being filed today. That is supporting what Governor Abbott and Attorney General Paxton are doing on the life issue, making it clear that our analysis says that it is true and it is legal to halt the abortion procedures along with other medical procedures during this time. The abortion groups, they're not spending time helping out the community as it relates to coronavirus-related issues. They're staying dead focused on the abortion business. And so as many of us are doing everything we can to preserve life, they're still focused on taking lives, as they always are. And so we're fighting against them and trying to uphold that law and that common sense order. And we're getting a brief file. There's going to be a hearing in about a week or so on this issue at the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals. But as it states now, abortions cannot be performed in the state of Texas, only maybe in limited circumstances. And so that is lives that are being saved, dozens of lives that are being saved, if not hundreds, every day and week in the state of Texas. Last thing, State Board of Education meetings are coming up in a couple of weeks. They're going to try to do them virtually. So stay tuned for updates on us on those issues. We're still working on them. And lastly, look, I have to ask, if you can, if you're in a position, I know some people aren't, there's been, the claims for unemployment have skyrocketed. We are sensitive to that, but we also have a team of 12 people that are part of the work we do. We're working day and night on these issues, trying to meet people where they are as it relates to our Texas values and the coronavirus issue. If you can make a donation, if you can make a tax-deductible donation to Texas Values, go to our website, txvalues.org. We just hired someone. As a matter of fact, we're putting something out, I think, tomorrow. We got a little bit behind in our timing. Jonathan Covey is our new director of policy for Texas Values. He was senior policy advisor for Senator Bob Hall. He was also chief of staff for State Representative James White. Yesterday was his first day. What an interesting time to join our team. But we're growing, and we made that decision before all of these things happened. But we're going to stay committed to it. But one way you can help us do that is by donating to our work. Go to txvalues.org. Make a tax-deductible donation today. I think that's the first time in this video I slowed down. You know, my wife, I've been home more too, obviously every day. I've been getting feedback from the family. So we'll see how I did. You can put that in the comment section if it sounded like I slowed down a little bit. But, you know, I just get real excited with the work we're doing. So I do need to be reminded of that from time to time, to slow down a little bit. And that's what many of us are doing. We're slowing down a little bit. But as you do it, don't forget about us. If you can support us financially of any amount, go to txvalues.org, make a tax-deductible donation today so we can continue to do the work we do for faith, family, and freedom in Texas. And look for our next video series update on how the coronavirus is impacting your Texas values. And we'll talk to you next time on our Facebook page.